You probably have never heard of it, but once upon a time, it was supposed to be the next big thing. It is called grass skiing, and for a brief moment it was incredibly popular in skiing circles. Once people got past the weirdness of the idea, they started to believe in it because they saw the promise. A way to bring skiing to people who could not afford luxury resorts twice a year, and people who couldn't afford to pay for expensive indoor slopes, not to mention a great way for enthusiasts to be able to train more often. If grass skiing took off, it could make the sport more accessible, more affordable, and maybe even more popular. So ski resorts promoted it, athletes trained on it. There were some that even dreamed it could one day become an Olympic sport. But then it disappeared, forgotten by the same world that once embraced it. So what happened to grass skiing? And why did this extreme sport vanish before it ever had a chance to go mainstream? The idea of grass skiing first appeared in the 1960s, born not in the snowy Alps but on grassy hillsides in Germany and Austria. It started as a practical solution for skiers that needed a way to practice during the summer, when the mountains were green and the snow was long gone. Inventors lined up small wheels along tracks, building bulky shoes that moved like little conveyor belts beneath your feet. At first, it was clunky, awkward, and only serious athletes used it. But by the 1970s, it started gaining attention. Manufacturers improved the design. They made them lighter, faster, and easier to control. Suddenly, grass skiing was not just for training, it was becoming a sport of its own, and grass ski clubs began popping up across Europe. Local competitions drew crowds, and for a short while, it looked like grass skiing might explode onto the world stage. Big names in skiing endorsed it. Resorts built grassy slopes just for these new types of skis. And then in 1986, grass skiing officially became recognized by the International Ski Federation. And for many, this was the turning point. The dream was coming true, and people believed it could go even further, because grass skiing had something snow skiing never would: accessibility. No need for snowmaking machines, no need for high-altitude mountains. Just a hill, a pair of grass skis, and you're good to go. It seemed perfect. Ski schools promoted it as a summer activity, and parents saw it as a cheaper way to get their kids into skiing. And professional athletes used it to stay sharp during the off-season. But under the surface, cracks were already beginning to show. The first problem? It was incredibly dangerous. Grass skiing was not just fast, it was unpredictable. The wheels could catch on rocks. The tracks could slip on uneven terrain. And the crashes were brutal. Falling on grass at high speed meant hitting hard dirt, not soft snow. So falls were incredibly hard on the body. Broken bones, sprains, and bruises that would last for weeks. This also meant that many beginners gave up after their first major fall. They just decided that the pain outweighed the thrill, and insurance companies started to take notice. And then the next issue is that the equipment was very expensive, even though it promised to make skiing cheaper overall. The grass skis themselves cost hundreds, sometimes thousands, and they wore out quickly, because grinding wheels over dirt and grass takes a toll. So for many families, the dream of affordable summer skiing wasn't as accessible as they had hoped. And then came the competition. In the 1990s, snowboarding exploded in popularity. And with it, a whole new wave of extreme sports captured the world's attention. Skateboarding, rollerblading, BMX biking, they all offered the same thrill, but with a much bigger cool factor. Grass skiing, by comparison, looked awkward, hard to master, and hard to learn. And the resorts that once built grass slopes started tearing them out. They replaced them with mountain biking trails or water parks, things that attracted bigger crowds and brought in more money. And by the early 2000s, grass skiing had already lost a lot of what little popularity it once had. But attempts to revive it kept popping up, and some enthusiasts pushed for it to become an Olympic event, pointing to its long history in international competitions. But the Olympic Committee never accepted it, because they favor sports with broader appeal and bigger audiences. Meanwhile, indoor ski slopes were becoming more common, especially in places like Dubai, the Netherlands, and the UK. And even though they were still quite expensive, they offered real snow and a more authentic experience, making grass skiing look even less appealing by comparison. But perhaps the biggest blow came from within the skiing world itself, because traditional skiers never fully embraced grass skiing. They saw it as a training tool, not a real sport. They saw it as something you did when the mountains were closed for actual skiing, not something you competed in seriously. And that stigma, it stuck. And it is arguably what kept grass skiing from ever breaking into the mainstream. By the 2010s, grass skiing had all but vanished from resorts in the US and much of Europe, but it never truly died. Because today there are still small pockets of enthusiasts that keep the sport alive, especially in countries like Italy, Austria, and Japan, where dedicated grass skiing clubs still hold competitions and manufacturers still produce specialized equipment. The International Ski Federation even continues to recognize grass skiing, with world championships held every 2 years. But these events fly under the radar and are rarely covered by mainstream media. In many ways, grass skiing became a victim of timing, because it arrived just before extreme sports took over. It promised accessibility, but failed to deliver on affordability. And although it always flirted with mainstream success, it was never able to break through. And now it exists in that strange space of being too niche to grow, yet too loved by its fans to disappear completely. But maybe that is what makes grass skiing so fascinating today, because in an age where most sports are polished, packaged, and heavily commercialized, grass skiing remains raw, untamed, and fiercely underground. It is still out there, on forgotten hillsides, raced by athletes who do it for passion, not for profit. And maybe that's exactly where it belongs.